My name is Naomi Hersson-Ringskog. I'm the founding director of No Longer Empty. And this is Manon Slome, founding chief curator of No Longer Empty. And we are going to show you what we do here in New York City. We were invited because of the work that we do throughout the 5 boroughs. Okay. And we're going to give a brief presentation about our model of creating public art for a diverse audience. So starting in 2009, when the fiscal crisis happened, No Longer Empty emerged as a response to the many, many storefronts and buildings that had been vacated by the crash. And it's important to note that we actually started as a project, not as a preconceived idea of an organization to build audience for art. We have now, in our 6th year, developed a mission that we're very passionate about. It's about activating new audiences for contemporary art. And the way we do that is by taking empty buildings or underutilized sites and turning them into site-specific exhibitions with cultural programming done in collaboration with local organizations and youth program for local schools and families. This research, these programs are really about reviving the historical narratives as well as the current day storytelling of that neighborhood. And so the key elements to our process is really first selecting the site, not coming with a preconceived notion, but coming with empty-handed and learning everything about that building, about its history, about its architecture, about the community, how it's changed, and who's there now. Then we focus very much on our artists that are responding to the same research and creating works that are responding to that research, as well as engaging the local community members in their artwork. And we focus on the schools and the children and the teachers and facilitating art access, that they can do something in their neighborhood, that they can walk to from a school tour, but also on the weekends. And then boosting our anchoring institutions in the neighborhoods. This means that we are doing collaborative programs both with cultural and educational organizations, but also other community-based, social-based institutions. So here are some examples. This is a project this was an empty storefront in Tower Records. This was a famous music store in the East Village. And we turned it into an exhibition about music and its impact of technology, of downloading, and how people were nostalgic for something that was lost today. This is the old Bank of Manhattan, a former bank in Long Island City, also known as a clock tower. Had stood there empty for 25 years, had a rich history. It was the Aaron Burr's first company headquarters. And we turned it into an exhibition about money. It was titled, How Much Do I Owe You? And it explored new forms of economy, time banking, co-sharing, and also the essence of value. How do you value natural materials? How do you view the markets? Another project we did in 2013 took a new building by Broadway Housing Communities, an affordable housing organization. They had built 13 floors, a future museum for children's art and storytelling, as well as a universal pre-K classroom. And we took this new building and explored the issues relating to housing in terms of immigrant issues, as well as belonging and historical narratives of this neighborhood. It was Sugar Hill, which is in Upper Manhattan, a neighborhood that's beautiful with its architecture and its rich history. So artists responded to the concept of building a city together collaboratively, or exploring notions of the Harlem Renaissance, who were the people that created this vibrant movement, as well as issues of housing and immigration. And our most recent project was in the South Bronx, in an old Bronx courthouse that had been empty for 40 years. And the exhibition was very much exploring the architecture, issues of justice, the neighborhood and its historical transformation from a blighted neighborhood to a neighborhood that's quickly changing. Here are examples of some of the school groups that you can see that attend our programs, how they are able to interact with the artworks in a very intimate setting. It's important to work with the teachers in aligning the programs to their curriculum, so it's reinforcing what they're learning in the classroom. This has also become a place where students can come after school and hang out. I mean, creating a space, an open space, a welcoming space for convening is what happens naturally by orchestrating these exhibitions in the heart of different communities, as well as experience artwork together with their families or their caretakers. And then we also have programs that are very much aligned with giving young teenagers the options of exploring different professions, whether it be a curator, art installer, a docent, an artist, but giving them firsthand experience in these programs.
Sure. Still awake. So why do we do what we do? As Naomi said, one of our central cores of our mission is to expand audiences for contemporary art by taking art outside the institutional setting, the museum, the gallery, which is often associated with class, with education, with places that keep some people in and some people out. And so we take these exhibitions and put them in the heart of communities, into buildings that have a meaning in that community. And we talk about site-specific curating. Site-specific for us is not just a formal term that a certain painting fits into a particular niche or an artist responding to a particular type of architecture. But as Naomi said, it begins with the essence of research into that neighborhood. What are its demographics? What are the people who've recently come to that neighborhood, and what are their concerns? What are the schools that operate there? What are the social issues? If it's a community that's many people of color, is there racial injustice? Is there police profiling? And we start by listening. We spend time in meetings, in community meetings, talking to the stakeholders and listening. We're guests in that community, and that's the very beginning of, in a way, we're talking here about cultural diplomacy. That's the very origin of where it begins. By listening, by understanding what the culture that you are about to enter is all about. And that is a sort of a very humbling experience because you go with a sort of blank slate, or try to go with as blank a slate as possible to absorb and to hear. And I like to say that you can have local without global, but you can't have global without the local, because until you understand what that local essence is about, what the people feel, not putting your assumptions on where they are, you're coming into this community and this is what's good for you, or these are the values that are good for you, but start by the humility of listening. And then from that local, you can expand to issues, which by necessity, because we're all human beings, we all face prejudice, we all face exclusion, we all face fear and loneliness, but by listening to the local, we can expand into the global. I'm going to skip over that slide. We talk about collaborations, which are really important to the work that we all do. We're all small organizations, we can never do it alone. So the core of what we do is curating these exhibitions, inviting artists to respond to the research we do, to come and do their own research. And so everything is new and fresh and full of dialogue, full of the possibility of dialogue. But then if you imagine the exhibition as the spoke of the wheel, we want to provide all these routes of access into the exhibition. So we invite local organizations, be it dance, music, theater, spoken word, to respond and bring with them their own local audiences. So here we have contemporary dancers responding to a work. Here in the Bronx, which is the birth of hip-hop, we have at the Hip Hop Academy, which came to do a day of workshops and presentations. We interpreted a different theme through healthy takes on empanadas in a community which ate a lot of empanadas, and another organization was providing food carts to try and bring healthy food into the area, because you've heard the term of food desert. So we linked to the food carts and brought these healthy ingredients into the kitchen of this place where we were doing, and we had a food workshop. I'm going to skip over slides that we don't, because time is limited. this was a group from an old age home. How often are these people, these sort of people at the margins of society, forgotten in our dialogues? But they bring with them the wisdom of having been in that borough potentially for a very long time, or bringing with them the cultures of the countries they come from, a great learning source. And how wonderful to link these older people with the youth that we serve in fractured families, many of whom don't have grandparents, and older people who don't have younger people, if we can bring them together into a kind of dialogue. And this is a wonderful experiment we've done in 3 different exhibitions. It's called Teens Curate Teens. So yes, we have professional artists in our exhibitions, but we've also now started to create a space for teens from the local schools to come to the site, share again in our research, and produce their own artwork on the themes. And often these teen artists who live in these communities know much more about the subjects of injustice and discrimination than many of us do. So here we have a group of our teen artists and their families, and the show is curated by another group of teens that we sort of instruct how you select a show, how you hang a show. So again, it's bringing layer by layer different segments of a community into the art experience in ways that they can feel both comfortable and empowered. Some of I'll be really rush through these because of time. The socially engaged projects, Mel Chin talking about issues of lead poisoning in the very soil that kids play in. And this a project that started in Hurricane Katrina. Another project dealing with domestic violence through a card game. This area in the Bronx has a lot of African American kids, but also many immigrants from Africa. And so the issues that the kids are dealing with in their daily life, violence at home leading to truantism at school, and the lack of teachers understanding the lives of their kids. And then kids from African American kids and kids from Africa with different standards of beauty and who is vying for whom. So this was all enacted out first by an artist creating a card game with the youth, and then it was acted out by Theatre of the Oppressed, and many school teachers were there, and it was a program that has subsequently gone into schools. And I'm going to I'll show 2 more artworks, and then I'm going to end, even though it's not the end of the presentation because of time. This was Nari Ward, a wonderful Harlem-based artist. And he was talking about how Harlem is often channeled into products because of its cool image. And yet the brewery, Sugar Hill Beer, happens to be in Brooklyn. And so even though the name Harlem is used, none of these things go back into the community. So Nari, playing on issues of the craziness of racial identity, had done a project with his children. He smiled into a can and then canned it and called it a Jamaican smile. And his kids, who were born in America, smiled into a can, and it was called an American smile. So growing from that project, he created Sugar Hill Smiles. And literally, I don't think we have a slide of him in the... Anyway, he went out with one of those Jamaican carts into the neighborhood and asked people to smile into cans. And there was a mirror at the bottom of the can. People said, oh, you can't can a smile. But as soon as you put a mirror in front of people, they looked at it, they smiled. We canned it, they put it in the can, and they said, well, how do we know it's our smile? So there was a very quick suspension of disbelief. These were collected over 5 days in the street, exhibited in the exhibition, the cart and all the cans. So people in the neighborhood knew about the exhibition. Through this canvassing, as it were. These were sold in the exhibition for $10 a piece, with proceeds going to the early childhood. So it was Nari's way of working with the community, getting something from the community, and making that product that gave back to the community. And finally, the Dred Scott project about wanted stop and frisk. Kids, he went out to about 5 different youth centers asking kids to volunteer to be sketched by a sketch artist, and they became the subjects of these wanted posters. And I'm sure you're all familiar with this format, but what the project was trying to do was to change the notion of wanted by the police to wanted by our community. And that, it was a very sort of, obviously activated a lot of emotions and discussions, and here you see Dred Scott, who's the artist in the center, in a panel discussion with some of the kids involved. And I'm going to end with our current project, which is currently a single installation at South Street Seaport. This incredible artist, Teresa Deal, and it's an interactive project where you walk through these screens that are made of filament and with resin on top and projections, and it's like a submerged interactive exhibition, just very meditative. So the end of your crazy time in New York at the UN, go and meditate down there. Thank you.